You've tried to improve your communication with the popular advice out there, and it's still not working. You've fixed your body language, and you still just feel awkward, and people aren't in awe of your confidence. In your relationship, you're using I statements and practicing active listening, but you can't seem to be understood and still can't avoid that same old argument. I have been there, so I'm going to share the reason why this stuff is not working and what you can actually do about it. The advice you've been getting so far focuses on words and phrases and when to use them, body language and what that conveys, tone of voice and rate of speaking, and maybe even reading the room or working the room. And this makes sense because these are the aspects of communication that we can observe. And if you really want to study those patterns and memorize those behaviors, you can. However, it will fall flat if you're just following a script, following a recipe of communication behaviors. It would be like cooking with ingredients you've never actually tasted and just trusting that recipe to turn out great. Instead of telling you what to say and how to say it, I want to help you connect to what you need to say and how you want to say it. We've all heard someone say the key to healthy relationships is communication. But the advice usually stops there, aside from rote words and phrases that you might use in certain situations. Even those things won't get you very far without the real secret sauce of communication. I'm talking about emotional regulation. Practically speaking, none of that other communication advice, the tone of voice, the rate of speaking, the body language, the eye contact, is going to make any sense or feel right for you or the other person if your emotions are a mess. Imagine scrambling to find the right words or to construct an I statement if you're frustrated and overwhelmed and just ready to explode. Imagine trying to maintain eye contact if you're so anxious that you're sweating and shaking. None of these strategies and behaviors are accessible to you when your emotions are so strong, when they are a mess and when you can't regulate them. This is because when those strong emotions come up, the logical parts of our brain, the decision making, the access to our vocabulary, like those words and phrases we've memorized, is actually shut off. In those moments, our emotions hijack our ability to communicate well, unless we can regulate our emotions. Very importantly, by regulate your emotions, I don't mean to stuff down your anger, to avoid your anxiety, to come back to your confusion and overwhelm later. I mean to sit with what you're feeling right now, let yourself feel it and breathe into it, thereby teaching yourself that you can handle it. So rather than trying to work the room, I encourage you to work with these emotions. Maybe you go into a meeting or presentation with a lot more anxiety than you previously realized. You get hot and sweaty and tense anytime your partner mentions the bills. Give yourself a moment to really check in with how that stuff sits in your body. My anxiety, for example, when it comes up, is usually this feeling of tension, tightness, and contraction in my chest, sometimes lower in my solar plexus. And I've learned to identify that so I know when that is coming up and I can still proceed with the conversation. Notice how all of that sits in your body and give yourself a moment to just breathe into it. This is already building your capacity to feel those strong emotions and still function. Then practice simply saying out loud what you're experiencing. For example, I am feeling tension in my chest because I am anxious. Just say it out loud. This is now training your nervous system that you can feel all of that stuff and still participate in a conversation and still maybe even say what you need to say. This is the foundation of healthier, more confident, more authentic communication, because when you can regulate your emotions, then you can finally be the best communicator in the room and the most empathetic listener that you know.